invite John Collins up to the podium here to give an overview of Hall for Hope, Hope Air's employee engagement strategy. Give it up for John.
Hello. Yeah, Kat's right. That's me, and this is my session, our Hope Air employee engagement strategy, Hall for Hope. I'm excited to share it with you. This is something that we've been building over the last couple of years, really rolling out into a new iteration this year, and you're the first audience that I've shared it with, and I'm jazzed about that. Zach set the bar high, no GIFs, no emojis, but I'll start with a video. Do we want a video? All right. Vancouver's already bringing the energy.
One, two. Let's make this move.
That might be a tough time to beat, guys.
Let's go, Timo. First five. Get cozy.
We do have a new leader.
You got it. You can do it. Every bit you've done coming in today, every bit you do coming out of today is a huge help for our patients, and I thank you for that.
There were very good vibes on event day, which is really what I was trying to convey. It's a plane pool event, so I'll speak about this on the next slide, but we're kind of deciding where to go. Do we go something really heavily mission aligned and have people pack bags for our patients when they come into town? Or do we go with something that's a little bit on brand and a lot of fun for people to participate in? And we went fun. By the way, I suppose some context on that mission would be important as well. That would have been hidden in this video, but we're Hope Air. I was just chatting with someone and shared that you may not know us. We're an underknown cause in the space, but we exist to fill a very important gap in our universal healthcare system. That gap is essentially that while we have access to world-class hospitals here in Toronto and throughout the country, if you live in a community far from here, you have to find your way there when you require specialized care. And all specialized pediatrics is located in an urban center, most complex cancer care, most things for rare diseases. And so if you're living in Timmins or Hearst, Ontario, 10 plus hours north of here, and you have to come into town for treatment, we exist to fill that gap for you, because otherwise you'd be on your own. So that's who we are, what we're about. And while you may not know about the cause, we're actually really fortunate that corporations and foundations get it. We're lucky at Hope Air. We have a fundable program. It's quite linear. We can tell you what we do, who we'll serve, and how you can fund it. And we've got strong support from corporate Canada, which we're really fortunate about. But it's a lot of grant writing support, right? It's a lot of submit application, get support, thank for check, and carry on. And so we knew that we had an opportunity to go further with the relationships, or to help find new relationships that didn't fit a grant model. And so we wanted to develop something employee engagement focused. Again, we thought about, do we put little teddy bears together and have employees at Corporation X sign the card? That's a nice idea. But instead, we thought, let's bring people out, get to know the brand in a really insightful and engaging way, and have some fun together. So that's what we did. Again, we wanted to unlock some incremental revenue from those corporate partners who were giving through another stream, but we thought might participate in peer-to-peer, might bring their employees out to fundraise. And then another interesting thing is that as part of our mission, we spend money with airlines, with accommodation partners, with meal services to support the people that we bring into community. And so, but not all of those brands write the big checks. So the thought was, can we get them out to support us in this way and drive some incremental revenue from them as well? And then just from a strategic standpoint, it's worth sharing that because we're very heavily grant-based, we're also very heavily trending in restricted gifts, which creates some challenges with balancing out demand across the country, paying for the operations of our charity, all those things. So the notion was, of course, as we're building the long-term strategy to get new corporations into our funnel and engage with them, let's make a little bit of unrestricted money that we can spend against important areas in our work as well. So those were the goals. And it went okay. So we raised $100,000 across 2 sites last year, which we're quite pleased with. The photo on the top left for me, right for you, is us with Scotiabank. So to give them a shout out, they're a major supporter through the granting program already. Then we managed to bring out a team that did some modest fundraising last year, and that was great. And this team from the real estate division is highly engaged in their own ESG or EGC culture within Scotiabank. Because they're so engaged, they got to pick their top cause that they participated with for the year. They picked Hope Air. Extra $25,000 check was a pretty nice surprise for us. We were grateful to receive it. The folks on the bottom actually are from points.com. They showed up by themselves, 2 people. We had brought in a team of ringers, and they actually won the time trial, so good for them. But these guys had a lot of fun. They actually took this back to their home office, shared the story of our work. They had not heard of us before, but they're an endemic partner. They work in the travel space. So now I meet with them tomorrow in Montreal. They'll be back on board for this year. We think they're going to bring a big check to this event as well. And so it's just another example of engaging 2 people that became very passionate about the event and our work, and wanted to do more. Yeah, actually, that's the story of Plus Grade right there. We're going to think about whether it's a long-term sustaining partnership. And then most exciting for us is, again, we have partner brands large and small on the mission fulfillment side, and WestJet's a great supporter of our work, lots of free flights for our patients every year. But again, we've never really been able to unlock any revenue earning potential from them either. We're expanding from 2 sites to 5 sites this year, and 4 sites are powered through WestJet. So they're putting up their aircraft, they're putting their brand marketing team behind this event. They've committed to fundraising. And obviously, again, for this underknown charity that's really trying to grow its brand presence, attaching ourselves to them in a really public way is very exciting for us. One loss, my team. I want to own that. I'm a pretty competitive person, and I got fired up about this event. We pulled early, set a high bar, and then did not follow through. So like all of the teams who joined us last year, we've actually got the competitive spirit to try and best ourselves and do a little better, which is cool about our model. It's not going to be a one-off event for people. It might be a 2 or 3 off event for people, but people got it. They came out and experienced it the first time. They want to come back and best their time, which is a lot of fun for us. Product conference. I can show you very simply how we've set this up for 2025. So it's just a peer-to-peer event. It's a single event within that platform. And we've done 2 very simple things to enable some stuff on the front end that I'll show you. 5 campaigns. So each of the cities that we'll be in has its own campaign. And then within that, each of the, we have group types. So we're trying to enable a sector-wide competition. Aviation teams will compete against each other. The banks will compete against each other. And so to enable that, we actually had to create group types within each campaign, which is probably a little more complex than we'd like it to be in terms of how we'll manage it, but it enables this. The leaderboards on the front end. We've been able to work with Cathex's partners to pull in that data into a custom leaderboard and show how aviation is performing against others in the aviation space, how finance is performing, etc. And then in terms of the actual front end of the website, each of our locations just have a location page. You select the one that you want to register for, you go ahead and sign up, and that part of it is actually pretty straightforward. So 2 sites last year, very happy with results. Where do we want to go this year? I mentioned at the start, we weren't sure whether we wanted to crank the volume on mission really high or crank the volume on fun really high, and we went with fun. Now we're turning up the volume on mission this year. So again, recognizing that people might not know much about us when they come into the event, our idea is to connect every team to a real individual patient. Last year, we told broad stories about our impact, and that had meaning. This year, the idea will be if row 2 is pulling against row 3, you'll have a different patient that you're connected to through the experience, and that patient reaches out to you to tell their story, tell why Hope Air matters, and even to send a little bit of encouragement in your fundraising and your training along the way. Again, just from a product solution standpoint, we actually haven't figured out how we're going to do this. We have 12 team captains or patient heroes, 5 sites. We'll repeat the captains across each site. So just haven't figured out whether we're going to do a welcome series or whether we'll just group everybody into broadcast email and send all the Rob emails to all the Rob participants, but we'll work that through. And of course, the welcome series, one of the benefits there is we want to time this so that if you sign up today, you get your first email from your hero in 7 days, and a welcome series would do that for us. So we'll figure it out. And then on the non-technical side, we just want this event to go really well. So we did well at 2 sites last year. And if you're considering a plane pull event, one, makes sense if you have a brand that fits. 2, what's great about it is everybody just has fun and it kind of runs itself. You watch, you cheer, it's exciting. So it went well last year, but we really want to make sure it goes even better this year. And the bullet that I have there is important to me. We brought on WestJet, which I'm very excited about. They're also the most important partner in our universe, right? There's no opportunity to drop the ball on this one, and the team kind of knows the implications of that. So as such, we brought in some production support. We bootstrapped it last year. We're working with a great production company here in Toronto that'll handle the logistics and let us focus on those participant comms, the event day experience, and just engaging with people while we're there. And again, I've already shared this, but I really think that leaning into competition in fundraising and in pull time, and then segmenting that by sectors where we know that people want to compete with each other is going to enhance the experience for them and enhance fundraising as well. So that's this year, and we're excited to already be thinking about next year as well. So from 2 sites to 5 this year, with the assumption that it continues to go well this year and WestJet is happy with us. We'll be growing with them into Atlantic Canada and into Quebec next year. And there's an important note there. If we're doing that, we've got to figure out how to do that in French language. So right now we're running this as an English-only event, but we're aware that as we expand, we have to think about how we integrate French into our online experience. And again, this came up in the marketing automation stories earlier. Just really want to be thinking about how we segment, how we conditionalize, and how we further personalize our content. We like the team captains approach this year. But of course, Dan, I've been talking to you about P2P V3, and we're excited to think about how we can do time-based, milestone-based, and participant type-based messaging within that platform. So looking forward to bringing that to life. And that was quick. And this is it. And I hope, on note of videos, there's a quiet background video of the theme from Top Gun that's supposed to play here. Which is half the reason that I created the event. I get to stand up in front of everyone with the aviators on and do that. So pretend you're hearing that. It's very cool, right? But I want to leave you with one thing, boil it down to one message, and it's right here on screen. A plane pull is a cool event. It does run itself, as I said, and anything that you do that will engage corporate teams or individuals in a way that they have fun probably connects them to your brand in a meaningful way. But I'm not telling everyone to go run a plane pull for their organization. What I am saying is we built this program because we had an organization need. Engage more employees, connect companies to our brand. It worked because aircraft, airport authorities, the story of travel is endemic to our brand. And so we could talk about that work organically within the event. And because our board is behind this, our CEO is behind this, and our partners are behind this. So we had support from the top down, including my investment in this event. And I guess I've already said this really, you don't need to do this, but you'd probably benefit from something that does all 3 of those things. And that's what I wanted to share with you. And URL is there if anyone wants to check it out or participate this year. Thank you.
Thanks, John. That was awesome. And I think this really plays into the human experience that we're all craving here today. You know, we come to these conferences to connect. And of course, you mentioned it's about competition, but that also is a place of connection as well. So happy to have you here and talk about these IRL experiences, but also how they integrate with digital, because that is where we are in this day and age. How do we integrate the in-person experience with the digital? So we got a lot of great questions. We will kick it off with, how does your brand awareness play into the grant writing side of your work?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question, actually. And I think it's a two-way street. So again, we've been successful write grant, submit grant with or without brand awareness. But we've been particularly successful in the communities that we serve where we have a known brand to a greater extent than an urban center, and where we have a story to tell in the grant about the people that we serve. So, that helps with community foundations. It helps with smaller corporations. And then further, those folks are connected into their community as well. So I was in Prince George Monday, met with a community foundation lead who knows, the local poverty reduction organizations, local healthcare center, and was able to make those connections for us and help us raise our profile. So I think that's part of it. But then we are also thoughtful about the timeliness, I suppose, of our approach with these grant requests. So if we're running a large marketing campaign in Toronto, or if we did just succeed with the Scotiabank team at that event, that's probably a good time to submit the application and have an internal advocate. We were in Timmins and created a lot of noise with a concert earlier this month. And now this is the follow-up window for us to submit requests because people are thinking about us and our brand.
That's great. So there's a bit of intuition and personal connection in your reach outs and how you go about that. Timing.
Yeah, timing. And it's not even maybe intuition, but really integration, right? Just thinking ahead about how all of our channels fit together. And that was mentioned in an earlier session. And I think that's important across the board.
That's great. And so you had mentioned you're expanding your presence next year. Is this how you're going about it, or what's the strategy? How did you choose the locations?
Yeah, great question. So our 5 sites for this year: Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, and Kelowna. And most of those were chosen because our airline partner operates in those markets and they're important to them and they're important to us. We think there's opportunity in Calgary. WestJet is based in Calgary. Check. We also chose Kelowna as a bit of a test case this year to see how things work next year. So it's still a large enough urban center with a large enough corporate presence that we think there are teams that we can draw on there, but it's also where we serve a lot of people. So if Kelowna performs well relative to Vancouver, what does that mean for, I don't know, I should have had the example in the back of my mind, Gander instead of St. John's when we go to Newfoundland as an example.
Great. So what's next for these corporate sponsors? You got them involved. And, I know you mentioned there's some marketing automations and things of that nature, but what's the big play here? Are you hoping they get involved next year, or what's?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's kind of all things. So we are treating this as a corporate funnel, just like you would have an individual giving funnel and pipeline, right? So less marketing automation. We're staying in touch with the participants who joined Hall for Hope to keep them connected to our brand and hopefully turn them into champions inside the corporations. But for us, it's really just like we had Aon involved last year. I met with them this morning. Where am I going with this? Just we start a relationship there. They learn a little bit more. Probably the decision maker is not participating in my event, but I can tell the story of their participation. I can speak to individuals that they're going to know that had a great time at the event. And it's just one more touch point for us. So with them, we went back to them with an increased sponsorship for this year. With others, we'll go have a conversation again about their granting program, if that's appropriate or however it may fit. So mass marketing to attract participants to the event. And then between myself and my corporate lead, just reaching out to maintain relationships with the brands that do come in.
That's great. And this is more of a logistical question, but how many individuals do you have helping you make this happen? Because it sounds like there's a lot of levers that you pull within each of these buckets.
Yeah, we're a small team. So we rely on outside support when we need it, and we've had a web development partner that I acknowledged on this program. We're happy that we're able to bring WestJet's resources to bear this year, but I've got an events team of 2 that'll manage the peer-to-peer side of this, and then a corporate team of 1 and myself who will manage the relationship side of that. And it's pretty lean, which again is why it's important to be integrated, right? We are running a corporate portfolio, but we're thinking about how it fits together with this event, which we absolutely have to do in a thinly resourced environment.
That's great. And then for organizations out in the audience who don't necessarily have a program like this, where would you tell them to start? I mean, you have the great fortune of having this plane that is also part of your brand, but for organizations that don't necessarily have planes, how would you help navigate this with them?
Yeah, I guess it's hard to give a blanket answer to that. And I'd refer back to my takeaway. Just you may not have a plane, but you may have people that you serve or patients that you serve or people with the medical condition that you're working with. And that core audience is probably most important. And as was shared earlier this morning, really leaning into them and what matters to them and what will motivate them as part of how you build something, I think is important. But I'd also just share that, again, we started this at 2 sites last year. We're scaling to 5 this year, and then hopefully scaling to 10 next year. We didn't start with the big budget, pay for a production company, bring in WestJet as a partner event. We started with a 2-site pilot with friendly airports that wanted to help us. We saw how it worked, and it worked, and then we dove into it. And I think that's a lesson too. It doesn't have to be an 80-site walk your first year. It can be 1 or 2, learn a few things, test a concept, and then go onward from there.
That's great. A minimal viable product. That's great. So you're on this path to scaling this program. What are you telling sponsors to sell them on getting involved?
Yeah, great question. We know that there's not huge reach, right? So how many people do you think it takes to pull a 67,000-pound airplane? I guess you saw some video. 10? Did somebody say 10? Nailed it. 10 people. 10 to 12. And we can only accommodate 12 teams at each of our sites because it takes a little while. 1, to pull it, 2, to reset the plane and just go through. And you can only hold people's attention for so long. So 12 people, 12 teams, 150 people at our event. I can't really sell the companies on brand exposure with this. So I'm selling them on employee engagement, right? This is we built it as a team building opportunity, and silly lessons learned from last year, but it was really interesting to watch teams talk about how you might hold the rope or who gets to stand first or who gets to go last, right? And so there is some problem solving within the team. Everybody has a good experience. Obviously, it connects them to giving back. And so we believe in the employee engagement value that we're providing through the event. And that's what we're pushing to our sponsors as much as logos on t-shirts.
Going off of that, did you find any particular strategy for the team in terms of stronger people in the front or what? I want to know how to win, basically.
Yeah. So my CEO, I let him go in the front as like a token, you're the leader last year. And he's never let me live it down because there's a lot of pressure on that role. People fall down. The whole team is watching you. So you should know that. And you should know how to manage your CEO. That's probably other advice. Strong people in the back and rope over the shoulder, I think, is the way it goes at a certain point. This way, then up over the shoulder. So that's my tip if you ever find yourself in the situation. But again, everybody does it differently. And it was kind of cool to see that and see how teams strategize around it.
Do you do any sort of initial overview to give teams a chance to consider how they're going to do this, or you just throw them right in?
We kind of threw them in part because also like this event exists out there in the world, but we had never run it before, right? So again, one reason to start with 2 sites last year, we didn't know how to do it. So I gave some very general advice to people and said, go figure it out. I think this year we can probably be a little more helpful, one, with how to pull, but also with all the need to know stuff when you show up at the event. We're pulling at an airport. We're in a secured environment. That is fairly complex, right? And so we'd never lived it. Now we have, and we can grow this year.
That's great. Thanks for answering my question. So now that I know how to win. Moving back to the questions from the audience, did Hope Air also treat this as a new donor acquisition campaign to renew as active donors?
Yeah, so it's a great question. It's a great question, and actually not yet. And obviously there is opportunity there. Our individual donor file is 2,000 people, right? We rely on these large grants. And so we know we need to grow here. We know this is an acquisition strategy for us, but I think for a lot of organizations, there's some sensitivity to peer-to-peer events when you engage with the participants and their donors, that is, and how you bring them into your funnel. And because it was corporate, because it involved a lot of the brands that we work with on a regular basis, we were extra sensitive to that. So we haven't just dumped them into a funnel, but certainly there are a lot of new names coming in for this event, and we will be thoughtfully engaging with them for sure.
Great. Well, I know we're at time here, so thank you, John. And thank you for all your wonderful questions. If you have any other questions, it looks like we didn't get to all of them. Feel free to chat with John afterwards.
Thanks. You.